Good morning. It is morning huddle time.
A sense of belonging in a company actually increases job performance by 56%.
It's like a lot of times all of that 3D data is there. They've done the work. They've done the engineering. They've done the slopes. They've done all the 3D polylines are already in their file. There's just a huge disconnect between what they do and the builders right now.
113,000 available unfilled construction jobs in this country, 11 million available unfilled jobs overall in this country.
One of the great culture things I see in construction is people just get it done. At the end of the day, we've built 100% of the building. There's no 80-20 rule.
Think of the technology that has been brought into existence in the last 60 years, and you think of the productivity gains that have, say, occurred in agriculture, which is up 1,750%, or manufacturing, which is up 400%, and construction is flat to negative.
This was always supposed to just be a 6-episode mini-series, Stacy. I want to remind you of that.
Good morning. It is morning huddle time. Chad Prinky here with Stacy Holzinger. Stacy, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm better. Lots more energy.
We've got a healthy Stace.
Yes, I'm back.
Awesome. Good. So glad to hear it. Those things can really grab on and stick around. So what do you our guest today, who we'll introduce in just a few moments, I know is somebody from your personal and business network. There's some peer group that you're a part of. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was asked to be in a cohort with around, I think there's 30 of us all across the US in various different fields, but we all share the common goal that we want to promote skilled trades. We met once in person in Vegas a few months ago. We're meeting again next week in Vegas, but we meet monthly for 2 hours, and we're in our research phase right now. Each of us have a how might we statement that we have to come up with, and then do the research behind on how we can, like, for example, my how might we statement is how might we connect contractors to career explorers? How can we make that connection so they can promote the trades better? But yes, Jason, our guest, is he's like a true Renaissance man. I've got to know him pretty well. He is, he'll get into his story, which is really exciting, but we're working together with this large group. And at the end of this cohort, which is sponsored by Bendable Labs and Harbor Freight Tools, I believe they select one person, and they'll fund whatever solution that we come up with. And this is their second cohort group. So I'm hoping we can meet our first cohort group too, to see what they came up with. So the whole thing is very exciting. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of people in our group that are directly involved with the school system, which I think is the big disconnect between the schools and the businesses, because we have a lot of small businesses that just don't have the resources or funding or time just to connect with the school. So that's why I'm there. That's my goal, is to try to figure that out.
That's awesome. It's, your passion for workforce development and creating the future of the construction industry and in terms of young talent and making it a viable career option is it's tangible. And we all have our thing, and I'm impressed by that mission that you have. And I can't think of a better lead in to introduce our guest this morning. You just gave a pretty strong endorsement and introduction of your own. Jason Blackwell is here with us. Jason is, as Stacy said, MCCER's 2022 Harbor Freight Tools for Schools grand prize winner, and he's Alabama's head of career and technical education. Jason, thanks for being with us this morning.
I am excited to be here. I've watched some of y'all's episodes, and y'all put out some good content. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, we're really proud to have you here, and look forward to hearing your story, as Stacy said. So if you would, and as long as it takes, Jason, paint the picture
Absolutely.
for us. Right? How'd you get how'd you get to where you are? Paint the picture of exactly where you are, and what did your road look like?
Excellent.
So yeah, walk us through your story, Jason.
Well, I did not set out to be a teacher, and I got in a wreck in 2012. Prior to that, I was a millwright for about 10 years, built houses. My dad was a trades guy, and it wasn't too many things. I live in a neighborhood where everyone knows how to do everything, and we just didn't hire anything done, whether we didn't have the money or it just cost too much, or just my dad was just hard headed and we just did it. So I stayed up my daddy's shirt tail and just learned everything I could. And I come from an age that was prior to internet, and we had to ask people how to do things. And in 2012, my life changed a little bit. I had a semi that hit me, rear-ended me, and messed my neck up. And I'm pretty good with that now. But I had a lady that just was very adamant for me to teach electrical class, and I was like, I'm not teaching kids.
I'm not teaching kids.
I don't.
No, thank you.
They got on my nerves. I've trained enough of them in, workforce and business and industry that to know that they just, I didn't see any potential in them. But anyway, I walked in my classroom, and she talked me into at least trying it out and coming here and her out. I walked in the classroom and I was like, what have I got myself into? So I was like, she said, here's the keys, go forth and do great things. And then that was my classroom management, my how to teach, everything was right there, handing a set of keys to me. So I took the books home with me that they wanted me to teach, look over them, and I was like, man, I can do this. So I come in teaching load calculations. I come in teaching all these kind of things, and the guys is like, I was like, oh, this is a nail. This is a
Exactly.
so
Fasteners. Yeah.
yes. So I had to step back because they was not raised like I was, and I took a lot of
Sure.
things for granted. That this is a hammer. Do not leak the hammer. The hammer does other things. So this is a tape measure, and so very rudimentary skills, and I just developed a passion for it. And after the first year, I had an old guy that come up to me and was like, if you're going home tired, you're teaching wrong. And I evaluated some of my abilities, and I started putting a lot more on the kids. And I just had to step back and breathe when they was messing things up, because that was part of the learning process. And I stepped back and looked at how many things my dad and my neighbor and my brother-in-law fixed for me over the years that I tore up, messed up. And I was like, well, I could do the same thing for them. And I just kind of give them the reins, and I would become more of a facilitator, and that's made me pretty successful for helping them think outside the box. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's how humans learn best, is by doing and
trial by
trying.
fire, brother.
That's right.
Jason Blackwell don't like pain, so anything that causes him pain or anything, or money, I don't like spending money. So
Pain or money.
So anything like that I'm going to learn real quick.
Yeah, well, it's a great educator, isn't it? Pain is a fantastic educator, and going through that experience, gives you also a sense of accomplishment and autonomy that you don't get when somebody's hanging over your shoulder and kind of correcting you and making sure you don't screw anything up. So at the end of the day, not only are you learning better, but you're building a real self-confidence, not some, everybody gets a trophy self-confidence, but like a real self-confidence.
You're making memories, and a memory will stick with you for a long time.
Right.
I've had several kids hit their fingers with a hammer or get electrocuted when I was like, hey, don't touch this. And they're like, yeah, I said, you touched it, didn't you? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, I did.
It's like, well, I told you not to touch it.
I told you not to touch it.
I got real quick in my earlier days in education. I started getting me a pair of EH boots because some of the students would play a joke on me, or something. They'd have something live, and I knew that I had turned it off, but they had turned it on. So, you know, you have to get creative with kids. And again, you know, in the classroom, we try to make memories, and, you know, it allows them to learn. Like you said, it's a process, and I figured out the process that helps them remember things, whether it's shocked or, you know, a funny story. And a lot of stuff that I teach, I try to relate to it. I try not to make eye contact with a lot of people, because just things just randomly happen to me. It'll be a piece of metal all the way from across the room. It's going to find me, you know. So I've got plenty of stories to tell and plenty of scars, and but you know, the kids relate to it, because the biggest thing will be an educator and in workplace is being real with them. Nobody likes a Sunday school answer. You know, what got you where you are? How did you get there? And just, it's life. Life happens, and you just go through it the best you can, just like anyone else. But it helps to have that mentor or that person can, like, yeah, that happened to me too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, this is awesome. So, all right. You know, Stacy, I hope you don't mind, never announced this, but I just kind of assumed, because of your proximity to this topic and your relationship with Jason, I figured I'd just keep you on the whole time.
Yeah, that's fine.
To ask questions. Is there anything in Jason's story that you know, that he hasn't shared, that you have heard him share with you, that you want him to spend time talking about?
Well, we touched on the contest you won. Can you talk about how you were nominated and what that experience was like, and the whole process of that, and who yeah.
So Harbor Freight Tools for School is different from Harbor Freight, the actual place where you buy tools.
Mm-hmm.
They're an educational foundation that really sets forth to really go and instill things and find some of the best career tech teachers in the nation. And I put in for it 1 year and didn't really get it. And I mentor a lot of people throughout the state of Alabama. And one of my mentees actually won the $50,000 a year prior. And she had to let me know that she won it. So she's like, well, you need to do it this year. And so I did. And Hurricane Sally had come through, and really, I had a great group that year. And we spent several weeks sharpening chainsaws and fixing chainsaws for the community, where they could get trees and stuff out of the yard and off their houses. And then we spent several weeks actually going to people's houses and taking trees off their house because they just couldn't afford to get it, and some of them didn't have insurance. And you know, we were doing the work, and I had such a great group of students that year. And some of the things that I learned through the years, I was really starting to piece them together. A lot of times we have a lot of the puzzle pieces, but they're just not connected right. You'll make them fit, and it just clicked for me that year. And I sit down, I was like, my students really deserve me putting in the effort to do this. And I just sit down, and it took me 40 hours to go through there. It was only 8 questions or 9 questions. And you had to, it was a proximity of amount of characters and spaces it could be. And that was the hardest part, to put everything I wanted right on a piece of paper that had to be 2,000 character spaces and everything. And just to show the passion that my students have, and the passion that God has given me to teach and to make sure that our community thrives. I just sit down and was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do the best I can with it. You know, one question took me 4 hours to answer. I'd go back and erase it and go back and do things. And so I ended up winning $100,000. It was $30,000 that was wrote to me, sent to me, and $70,000 for the school, for my classroom in particular. And it's no stipulations on the money. And the cool thing with actually winning that, there's only 5 first place winner or $100,000 winners. And but it put me in a group of people with some of the most like-minded, most passionate people that you could ever be around. Yeah. And that's just one of the coolest things that I've ever been around, because, you know, it's hard out there trying to teach students that don't want to learn something, or they don't even realize they want to learn it. But you got to spark that interest, and sometimes that's hard to spark. I mean, if you ever tried to take a cigarette lighter or a match or a torch or anything and try to burn something that's wet, a lot of these students and these kids, and even young adults, and I've even had some older adults coming back and learn, they are hard to ignite because they've been through life and things is just beat them down. And so they're just like a wet rag that you're trying to catch on fire again. And so being around these like-minded people has really, just like the group that Stacy and I are in with the cohort for leadership, it takes that, and that's the reason it's so important for educators and business and industry people to have that morale and that environment that constantly just spews positive reinforcements. It's been a really cool thing to be part of Harbor Freight. And the grant changed my community. My school was not known for anything, and my students, the students at the school, put it on the map. And they was able to buy the equipment they needed and put some much effort into the classroom, and they just took passion. Now, as students come in there, they want to be in there. Like, hey, look what we can do. If you just put forth a little bit of effort, it goes a long way. Even if you don't win an award, it's still investing in yourself and investing in other people. So you still can't go wrong with that.
So you invested the money, and the kids actually identified what they wanted to invest the money in.
A lot of it did, yes, sir. There were some things that some students aren't aware of what equipment and things is out there, but they sit down there and looked and said, what do we need, and how do we need to how do we best need to spend this money? So it was a cool process.
So what happened? What was the flip or the switch that flipped for you when that took you from man, I don't want to mess with kids, to this fire that obviously you have, this passion that you have for working with these kids?
Well, seeing my first student that I changed his life, or I didn't change his life, but the trades, NCCR curriculum, Skills USA, CTSOs, that's meant to make the student better and give a student opportunity. A lot of the students really just have never been exposed to anything. And, to see that passion come alive in a student, I was like, man, this is cool. This is worth it. And you can't run your mouth out in society or your community if you won't change and you're not doing something about it. So, I realized that my dad had passed away, and, the impact that he made on me, and I was just one person. And I'm hoping that I can ignite that same thing in many, many people. And I love pouring into teachers, especially people that come out of business and industry into education, because that's two different worlds. And, I have really been able to see both sides of that. So I'm able to explain a lot of it. So it's really helped me be able to give other teachers a passion, because one teacher can change thousands of students. And with me just being one teacher, I wanted to change more students' lives, because I seen that light bulb come on, and I only seen it that one time. And I was like, that student's different. That kid's different. And the impact that it made.
Yeah. You wanted to keep that. You wanted to replicate that experience over again. And I think what's happened is you become addicted to contribution. I've heard this.
And for them to give back too, that's we donated a van. Our kids did a food drive one time, and a guy had donated we had such a good rapport with the community. A guy had gave us a van to give to a family in need. And so we not only gave food and hundreds of dollars of Christmas presents to this one family, but we also give a vehicle to this family. And for 22 students to look at that and be like, just the mouth that dropped, and like, man, I love this. And then to see what leaders that they've become in the community and what they've poured into it. That's why you make the community a good place, is you pour into it. You can't sit there and run your mouth if you're not willing to pour into it yourself.
That's exactly right. No, I love it. So I'm going to jump right on that and use that as an opportunity to pivot to something I know that you want to take, to talk about, being on the Morning Huddle. Most of our audience is made up of the business community, contractors for the most part, and some other folks that definitely touch the construction industry, whether they're material supply companies or engineers or architects, or fill in the blank. But for that audience, the business community, you talk about running your mouth, and I'm not blaming anybody. But one of the things that I've heard, and I'm sure you have, and Stacy, we've talked about with some other folks in the past, is that workforce. We don't have the workforce. We need the workforce. We can't find these people. We don't. I can't find enough good young people. I can't. Where am I going to get these folks? All the frustration that comes along with that. They're complaining about it.
Right.
What would you have the business community do to get involved and start helping with the very problem they're complaining about?
Well, nobody pays attention to words. It takes a little action. And that same thing, I won't ask anyone to do anything that I hadn't done myself or I'm willing to do. And, with business and industry, it's all about exposure. I can sit there and talk in a classroom and tell them all about these great and wonderful things because I've seen it. I've seen these lathes and these flywheels that weigh 50 tons. And, that's hard to explain to a student. And the robotics and manufacturing and electrical stuff, I've seen so many different things throughout my lifetime in industry, and the students had never been exposed to anything. And if I could tell anyone anything to make, again, you got to get that spark to spark. You are trying to light a wet rag. And it takes exposure, for business. And what I would tell business and industry is, bring people in the classroom, find you a teacher to invest in, find you a school to invest in. They don't have time. Me as a teacher, I don't have time to go out, beg, borrow, and plead with a lot of people. It might be one or two people that I can do that, but I just don't have a lot of time. So if people can come, we are always throughout the nation. I've been able to visit at least 15 different states, and it's the same problem throughout a lot of them. I just come back from Oregon this past week, and it was the exact same things that Alabama is facing. We need people on board to come speak to the classrooms, to bring props or bring a video of what your area looks like. What do you do? That's what excites students. Field trips, the exposure of the environments, more work-based learning. Most of the states have incentives for people to bring on apprenticeships and such. In Alabama, they'll pay like 80% of the paycheck up to a certain amount of money. And, these businesses, if they want to cultivate those students, they're going to have to get on board and say, where can I put my effort into? And sometimes it don't take money. And the money is nice because most of the classrooms in Alabama only get a allotted amount. I try to when I was in the classroom, I had about a $2,500 budget that I had to last all year. And, we build stuff, and you can get really creative, but then you got barriers at the school that you can't do this and you can't do that. But if business and industry, and they have what they call advisory committees, I would step out and say, if you got a carpentry teacher, electrical teacher, HVAC, welding, whatever is in your area, be on their board or their advisory committee and say, how can I help you? Because a lot of times the people don't even realize the school. I recently went to a sawmill that needed some people, and 24 miles down the road, they had 64 people that was in an industrial maintenance class. That's millwright, that's multi-craft, and he was not even aware of it. A lot of teachers don't have the ability to come see that business and industry, but if the business and industry will reach out to them and go to some of these events, we've talked about like CTSO. Skills USA is one of the biggest CTSOs throughout North America. And it allows them to do competitive events that allows the students to come from all over. Each state has their own thing. And it helps the students realize sometimes that they're not God's gift of like, oh, I can't be beat. And, and it really makes that student become better. But business and industry needs to go to some of these events and say, wow, it'll give you hope to look at some of these students and say, they built that. A 16-year-old student built that. Yeah, we got some cream of the crop that make it to some of these competitive events. And it'll make you reignite yourself like, not everyone's an idiot around here, not because
get more involved.
I spend my, incompetence is a pet peeve of mine, but you can't get upset at that if you don't, or you're not willing to take up time with someone to teach them, or if you're not trying to put, if your company does not have a training program to advance your career. And that's some of the things that the students need to, I've had a couple of students come by and like, this kid's, he works overseas, a prior student of mine, he brought a month's paycheck and he made $22,000. It was hard for him. The students paid attention to that. It's like, that's not real. You put that on camera. No, that's real. I show you on taxes. And I'm like, you need an employee, but
that's awesome.
They
so the answer is go out and
industry. Yeah, let me bullet point it for you. Industry speakers, tours, field trips. Sometimes they can't even get a bus there. It just helps. It might like, hey, how much does a bus cost for you and a driver? The environment, just the exposure to the environment. It could be an after school thing, put on something and come to a lot of different things. And if you're as small as a construction business as I have every year, over the summer, I will get a apprentice over the summer, and he helps me on my farm and with my construction, just really whatever we do. And I'm a one man guy, and I pay him and kind of have a little apprenticeship work. And in education, it's called work based learning. You simulated workplace is what we want to try to put in education, and we want to try to replicate it exactly like what you see in industry. And even the teachers has been out of it so long, and they're so burnt out, they don't even know what industry looks like anymore. So you can be like, hey man, come see what we got going on. A lot of times it just takes that teacher to become back on fire and be poured into to ignite those students again. Everyone has
I can relate to that too, because when I was just out at Thomas Edison School of Technology, and the automotive instructor there, he has been there for 20 plus years or so, and he was saying they had just hired a younger female auto mechanic, and she knew things because cars are changing so much with digital stuff. So he was still teaching stuff that he knew. So that kind of reignited a fire for him. So now he's kind of working with her but yeah, I hear that a lot from teachers, just being in industry for so long and not having that relationship with businesses or new technology to see what's out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of stuff in the industry too. They have to retire equipment, give it to the schools, and like, hey, we're doing this, and we're trying to education. We try to, again, just like what's in industry. So if you got something new that like, and around here milling, they're tooling craft machinist. They have the new 5-axis with a college. The business and industry said you need to get a 5-axis machine. That's $1 million. Well, one of the industries like, well, we need workers, so let's take one of ours, and we have from previous years, give it to the college, and then he's training those students on that. So we have to look at this whole thing as a partnership, and a lot of people are just like, it's us against you. You're doing this, and really and truly, and the thing that I'm working on with our cohort that Stacy and I is in, is like, how can we mesh these two? We need to get along a little bit better, and it needs to be more people bringing up to the table and saying, hey, and administrators in schools listen to business industry, and so does, like the State Department of Education. If business in the industry comes up to the building, they're going to listen to them, so they have a lot more power than they realize of changing stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I want to transition into audience questions. But before we do, I want to take a moment and recognize our sponsors for the show briefly. First, I want to recognize Katz Abosch. Katz Abosch is an accounting firm with a deep accounting experience in the construction industry. A lot of my clients work with Katz Abosch. They're really happy clients. I pursued them directly and said, hey, you've got a great reputation. I'd love for us to be associated with each other. Thank you for your sponsorship, Katz Abosch. Next is Lawrence Law. Lawrence Law is a boutique law firm based in the Baltimore area, serving Baltimore and Washington, D.C. And I believe they even have a New York City office. But they are a group of construction lawyers who are very comfortable and confident working through everything from general counsel through litigation needs. Reach out to Lawrence Law with any questions that you have there or any legal needs. And then lastly, we've got Frisco Wood Line, which is a lumber supply company based in Prince George's County, Maryland. They are awesome group of people and servicing the whole region with all sorts of lumber solutions, up to and including custom fabrication requirements, even some paint shop abilities. So do reach out to Frisco Wood Line for any of your lumber needs. Stacy, what do we have from the audience?
Yeah. So, Jason, you talked about reigniting the spark. I think a lot of contractors, because we don't spend a lot of time in the classroom, what are some tips that you could give us that students would like to see, or that really gets them excited if we were to come visit the classroom?
Well, swag is always helpful, company hats. My kids would fight over some of the company hats that coming in there, but just bringing that attitude and bringing that positivity with you, of in order for somebody else to believe it, you have to believe it yourself. So be passionate about your company when you come into a classroom, and maybe do some of your homework on some of the demographics around there, knowing what the students are facing. That way you can be a little bit more relatable. But food always excites my students. You can give them a 50-cent hot dog and they will work for 3 hours. So.
Have you seen any contractors come in and bring, a lot of the times we get asked to bring some type of interaction activity. Have you seen anyone do any cool things with that?
Yeah,
like any certain trades?
Yeah, I had picked up airplane build from a engineer had come in there. What it was the students would build the airplane prior, and then he would give them some directions on how to build the second one and see how much further it would go, and he related it back to life of, sometimes we just need to put a little effort into it and know how to do something the correct way, and you can go a lot further, so that's the reason you need to listen to a lot of people that mentor you. But they some of the companies bring in virtual reality, and the welders, they'll bring in a Lincoln or a Miller type of virtual reality headset, and I've seen that a lot. And also, graph paper, they'll come in and build something, like if they was going to do something manual, like on AutoCAD, they'd show them kind of what they actually do in the trade. And plus tools, a lot of guys bring tools in there, and the Alabama Power, some of the utility companies will bring their gloves, and it's like, hey, put nuts on this little bitty small screw, So as I would definitely, you brought up a really good point. The more interactive that you can be, the better the students will be for you, because you got to keep these jokers busy in the classroom. And just sitting there idle talk, it don't help a lot. So in PowerPoint, students don't really listen to PowerPoints. The QR code has become a big thing in my class, just because students can walk up and scan that thing, and it'll take them to something that they can do. And so definitely being interactive with students helps a lot. And bring some cool food.
Examples.
Bring some food and swag. Bring some hot dogs, hats, and then everything else will follow.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. I like it.
Nice. Yeah, I like the homework idea. That was new to me, with the airplane, like assigning them a project ahead of time to get them excited for when the speaker comes in, and then talk about it. Well, I think we're running out of time. I'm trying to, anything else, Chad, that you can think of, or Jason, did we miss anything?
I wanted to touch on, some of these companies, if they can have like some short-term training opportunities, I get bored really quick. So like if it's something fixing to take, like I take college classes and stuff, and I take one in the last 5 weeks. That is great. I can get it done. A lot of things that I've started trying to do with some of the colleges is like have a 2-week class or a weekend class where they learn, we're doing like skid steers and stuff, come out, the exposure, like just up and down with the hydraulic systems, what things are, so if you could have some little small training opportunities that the kids could just get a certificate, like, man, my mom and daddy, make mom and daddy proud, because you got to educate the parents too, because they want all their kids to go to 4-year universities. And I'm not against that. I'm formally educated myself, but there's so much that there's no trade that you can't make $100,000 in right now. And if mom and daddy's on board with it, and like student comes home with this cool certificate, like I went through this afternoon class behind school with running a bulldozer, or I got certified on a couple of tools. I'll put certifications out for 5 different hand tools. Just something the kids can take home. It's tangible, and like they'll frame it. They'll send me a picture of it.
Yeah.
So those small goals really helps the students realize, because a lot of them have been beat down and don't think they can accomplish anything. So if an industry guy's got like their logo on something, or their signature, or like, hey, this kid come out and did this, they put a hard helmet, PPE, they understood what this was. It helps a lot, and it don't take anything but to print a certificate. They ain't got to know that it ain't not necessarily real, but it's real to them, and it's real to that company.
It's real that you completed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea. I've been involved with the Summer Rise program in Montgomery County in Maryland, and that's a 5-week program, and they are just taken off with so much participation. I think that's real and tactical for contractors to participate in short term. And then, like you said, it gives those students a boost, their confidence. They learn something, a skill they took away, and it's short term. So I love that idea. That's awesome.
Well, I definitely appreciate y'all's time and everything.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. I like talking, and I'm very passionate about education, and we just got to get on the same page, and it's happening. It's just a slow process, especially education. Nothing had education, the speed of education. I had a Boilermaker one time tell me, and I'm like, I understand completely what he was talking about.
Yeah, man. Well, again, thank you for being on. I've got this picture in my mind of, at least with the companies that I'm working with, that it's maybe just as easy as calling the front desk at the school and asking to, get involved. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah.
And I think there's the removing those barriers and getting started, and pick a school and make an impact at that space. And if everybody kind of
one world at a time,
Yeah.
That school is a world in itself. They got their own environment. They got their own everything is isolated to that school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to contribute. So, well, good. Thank you, Jason. We'll be back in touch, and love to hear how things are progressing with you into the future. And thank you again for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Stacy.
See ya. See you next week.
All right, Stacy. Let's do a little bit of cleanup and set up for next week. So to continue on the CTE theme, next week we have somebody that I think is also in your sphere of or in your world, Mr. Jarrett.
Yep.
Talk to me about Mr. Jarrett.
Yeah, so I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia. I actually grew up in a neighborhood called Mayfair, and Mr. Jarrett popped up on my Instagram, I think it was last year, with a huge following. He's the first CTE middle school program in Philadelphia, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is so up my alley, and it's in my old neighborhood. So I surprised him. And my best friend teaches at a school, which is so crazy. I surprised him. I don't even know when that was. I think it was spring. And I did a presentation on building information modeling for the kids. And he's doing incredible things, just hands-on activities, which he'll talk about. I'm hoping his kids even come on. I don't know if
Let's
they're joining.
go.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're joining. They have a podcast themselves. So he's trying to not just incorporate the trades itself, but like other activities within construction. And then the students talk about what they learned on the podcast. They also interview industry experts. And because he's utilizing social media so well, he's having volunteers constantly come and visit his classroom and teach his kids. And that's like what we want, that partnership. So I'm excited to talk to him for
It
sure.
sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds great. So look forward to next week. Definitely be there. And as always, folks, be sure you're added to our newsletter so that you can get caught up quickly with what the previous show, the upcoming show, any show news, and ways to engage with Stacy and I. You can reach out to Stacy H at steeltoecom.com.
All right. Have a good one, guys. See ya.
Yeah. Thanks.